There have been test matches played at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, and there have been historic achievements, performances. In fact, the Melbourne Cricket Ground hosted the first ever test match in 1877, Australia versus England, and since then Australia have played in 116 test matches at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. Certainly not all are Boxing Day test matches. In fact, the test matches at the Melbourne Cricket Ground were played around the new year before it became the Boxing Day test match right from 1980. Since then, it has been 26th of December every year Boxing Day test match. Of course, there have been some years after 1980 where there have not been Boxing Day test matches. Test matches have begun on 24th of December, or in one or two instances there have not been Boxing Day test matches. If you look at it, Australia have dominated at the G overall, including the non-Boxing Day test matches right from 1877. Australia have won 67 test matches out of the 116 played at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. And if you only take the Boxing Day test matches, 43 Boxing Day test matches have been played starting on the 26th of December, and Australia have won 26 of them, lost 8 and drawn 9. India have played 14 test matches, like I mentioned, won 4, 2 of them in their last 2 visits. 2020-21, when India beat Australia by 8 wickets, and in 2017-18, when India clinched the series, winning the third test of that 4-match Border Gavaskar Trophy, winning it by 137 runs to clinch the series, because the next test match, the fourth of that series, fourth and final one, was at the Sydney Cricket Ground and it ended in a draw. It was in that 2017-18 test match where Jasprit Bumrah took his second best bowling figures ever, 6 for 33 in the first innings, and followed it up with another 3 wickets to finish with a match wicket haul of 9. It was the same test match where Cheteshwar Pujara scored that patient but brilliant 106, and India won by 137 runs. There have been quite a creditable performance. We cannot forget the 1985-86 Melbourne Test match where our own Krishnamachari Srikanth scored, opening with Sunil Gavaskar, scored those quick-fire 80-odd runs, and India were denied victory. Weather and some umpiring decisions frustrated India, and furthermore, the 10th wicket pair of Australia, Allan and David Gilbert, they frustrated India no end, sharing 77 for the last wicket. And by the time India set out to bat, time ran out, and that was also a test match under Kapil Dev's captaincy where weather denied India a victory, and also the umpiring decisions favored the Australians. The 2 other victories for India at the Melbourne Cricket Ground came on the 1977-78 tour and also on the 1980-81 tour. The 1980-81 cannot be forgotten at all. It was the test match in which Kapil Dev, playing with painkillers on the 5th and final day, took 5 wickets for 28 runs. He was suffering from a thigh muscle injury and he was in no shape to get up and bowl on the final morning. But India needed him. It was not only him. India other bowlers, Shivalal Yadav and Dilip Doshi, also were not 100% fit. Yet, when it came to answering the nation's call, Kapil Dev, 5 for 28 with some brilliant swing bowling, dismissed Australia for less than 100, and the target for Australia was only 120 odd runs. In fact, the target for Australia was 143, and Kapil Dev's 5 for 28 paved the way for a brilliant victory for India by 59 runs. It was the same test match in which Sunil Gavaskar almost forfeited the Indian innings. The incident was infamous for Gavaskar walking out from the batting crease with his opening partner Chetan Chauhan. Yes, the events went like this. Dennis Lillee, the fearsome pace bowler, he trapped Sunil Gavaskar and was given out leg before wicket. Gavaskar's contention was that he had nicked the ball onto his pad, so inside edge, and he thought it was not out. But then there were arguments, and when it went to the extent that Gavaskar has often said after the test matches and in the public gathering that more than the umpire's decision, it was the choice of words that were hurled at him that got personal, that got him to walk out with his opening partner Chetan Chauhan, and better sense prevailed when before Chetan Chauhan crossed the boundary line, the Indian team manager, wing commander Durrani, not to be mistaken for the great all-rounder Salim Durrani, he told Chetan Chauhan to go back, continue his batting, and the Indian batting continued. That was one heat of the moment which Gavaskar has often and later on has also regretted walking away, but he also said that it was in the heat of the moment. The previous one, the first victory for India at the MCG came in 1977-78, and it was in this test match that the great leg spinner B.S. Chandrasekhar took identical figures of 6 for 52 as India. They did not get a good start. Sunil Gavaskar falling for 0, Chetan Chauhan falling for 0 in the first innings. India were 0 for 2, and some useful contributions by Mohinder Amarnath, Gundappa Vishwanath. Gundappa Vishwanath always enjoyed batting at the MCG. Dilip Vengsaka, Ashok Mankad, Syed Kirmani, the wicketkeeper, they all added invaluable runs and paved the way for an Indian victory by 222 runs. It was India's first victory out of 4 at the G, and that came in their 4th appearance at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. Their first ever was against Don Bradman. There was one interesting twist to that test match. Lala Amarnath captaining the Indian side, Don Bradman, of course, Australia captain. And if you look at the scorecard, the Australian second innings, they opened with their bowlers. Don Bradman, the astute captain that he is famous for doing such things. If you recall, he is always spoken about one who, because of the weather conditions and to protect his main batsman, the 1937 Ashes test at this very ground, Melbourne, affected by weather, and in those days it was played on uncovered pitches, so it was left to the nature and the elements, so pitches were uncovered. Melbourne test match in 1937 against England, affected by weather. Don Bradman, the intelligent thinker of the game that he was, he just flipped the batting order. The bowlers batted first in the second innings, so that once the pitch settled down and it became good for batting, the batsmen made merry on it. And in that test match in 1937 Ashes, Don Bradman scored 270 runs. It repeated against in the 1947-48. In fact, it was the test match in 1948 January, starting on the New Year's Day. Don Bradman got his bowlers Ian Johnson and leg break bowler Bruce Dooland to open the innings, and it was Johnston at number 3, and number 4 was Sydney Barnes. Sydney G. Barnes, with S-I-D-N-E-Y as the spelling, not to be mistaken or confused for the famous, dreaded England fast bowler of the first half of the 20th century, Sydney F. Barnes, with S-Y-D-N-E-Y as his spelling, the Englishman. So this Sydney Barnes, S-I-D, scored 3 centuries, has been an opener, but he played at number 4. This was because the weather interrupted, the pitch was exposed to the nature, and in order to protect his top order batsman, Bradman opened with the bowlers Ian Johnson and Bruce Dooland, with Johnston at number 3. Lala Amarnath took 3 wickets, and Australia were reduced to 4 wickets for 32 runs before the 5th wicket partnership of Arthur Morris and Bradman batting at number 6 shared 223 runs unbroken for the 5th wicket. So that was what Bradman was all about. Flipping the batting order, because on uncovered pitches he did not want to expose his top order batsmen. And the result is there to see. 270 in that 1937 Ashes Test match when he flipped the batting order, and again here against India. Interestingly, in this Test match, though India lost, Bradman scored for the first and only time a century in each innings of a Test match. The one who scored 29 Test centuries in only 52 Test matches, averages 99.94. Don Bradman, for the first and only time in his Test career, scored a century in each innings of a Test match in this particular 1947-48 match against India. 132 in the first innings, followed by 127 not out in the second. Interestingly, in that particular series, India played twice at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. This was the third of the series, and India also played at the MCG in the 5th Test match of that series.